Hello and welcome back to the Content Podcast. It's been quite a long time, but I'm very glad to be back with one of the good guys in football. Let's put it that way. He's one of the few people I'd say that I met straight away and instantly, he just really helped me a lot in my career, especially early on in my first few days at TalkSport. I'm glad to say, I'm very honoured to say I'm joined by none other than Mr. Darren Ambrose. Darren, how are we, mate? You all good?
No, I'm very good. And Neil, fantastic introduction. And listen, you didn't need any help coming into TalkSport. You hit the ground running, and it's always nice. I was always like this as a player. I like the environment to be nice, to be friendly. People enjoy coming to work, and I think you'll agree on Sundays, especially last season, it was always like that. So it's brilliant. Great to be here, mate.
Obviously, before we get into the playing career and stuff, how have you found sort of the transition to the media side of things? Because obviously it's not exactly playing football. It's not going to give you the same buzz, should we say. But, it's very similar in terms of, you're being in the public eye, you're exposed, obviously, to scrutiny, to criticism for your performances, as you probably know already. So how do you sort of handle it? And what are the, shall we say, the similarities of playing as well as the media side of things?
Well, you know what? Like, to start with, I never thought I'd get into media. I never thought this would be the route I go down. I always thought maybe coaching. I used to coach Ipswich, but the younger age, I used to coach the 10s, 11s, 12s, mainly because my son was in the academy. So I thought, right, let's give this a go. They wanted help. And as soon as I retired, because I retired quite early in the game, I retired about 32, I think it was. I opened my own business, opened my own barbershop in Ipswich. Obviously I don't cut hair, so it was something that I thought, you know what, let's see if I can go into the business side of things and see if I could run my own business. Me and a friend of mine, we went into business together, ended up buying two, and then I'd say about 3-4 years into that, because it kind of was a barbershop, unless you're cutting hair as a lifespan, and 3-4 years kind of they all flee the nest, as it were. All the barbers go get their own shop. So I was like, I need to get out of this. Me and my business partner, we kind of fell out a little bit as well. So I was like, listen, take the businesses. I want to get out. And honestly, the day after I left the business, I signed the contract over for free to my friend, the guy that I went into business with, gave it all to him. Bentley's phoned me up and said, oh, I'm getting a new show on TalkSport. And it was the Sunday session. That's what he was hosting originally. But he said, it's going to change. It's going to change to Darren Bent's boot room. He said, and they're asking me to get guests. Do you want to come in and be one of the first guests? I was on holiday at the time and I was thinking, damn, I'm missing my opportunity. I didn't know what to expect, really. I said, yeah, definitely get me in. I need to come and see what it's all about. So I got in there and I said, look, don't stitch me up. You know what me and Bentley are like. We're close. We've been close for a long, long time. We'll speak about him a little bit, I'm sure. I said, don't stitch me up. I've got young kids. All I've been doing for the last 3, 4, 5 years is watching children's programs on the TV, cartoons. Not like when we was a player. When we were players, you have Sky Sports News on in the change room, in the canteen, everywhere. You know everything about every sport. So I said, don't stitch me up. He's like, no, I'm not gonna ask about, I know, Poland defense or something like that. We're going to just, we'll speak about what we know. And absolutely loved it. I went in there. First thing I said, I think it was, I spoke about 𝗪𝗂𝘀, Manchester United, 𝗪𝗂𝘀, Rashford, saying they could be the guys to take Man U to the next level, because everyone was saying they couldn't. And I went against the grain and went, yeah, I think they could come up with loads of stats. They clipped it up, got untold amounts of abuse on social media, but that's the way it is that I've learned. And I loved it. And I'm walking around town after that, didn't think nothing of it. Dave Richards, you know Dave, the guy that does the bookings, phoned me up, says, Lee Clayton loved you. Do you want the gig for the season? And I was like, wow. Like, so obviously I got a lot to thank Bentley for getting introducing me, but he always said, I can bring you in once, and after that it's down to you. You need to do what you have to do. You need to impress. And I seem to make that work. And from then, like you said, I've hit the ground running. Like, I never expected to be a face on Drive. I never expected to be a face on Sports Bar, on Kickoff. And I seem to have done all these shows, and, I absolutely love it. And the boot room seems to be, because obviously it's changed now to the boot room now Bentley's left. It seems to be my baby, really. And I can't see myself ever wanting to leave that show.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know what? And I might be a little bit biased, but honestly, it's right up there with one of my favorite shows on TalkSport, and even in the media. I think the dynamic that you have in that show. Obviously, you know, you've got the banter side of things. I think that's quite apparent between all three of you from last season and now this season. Obviously, with
Yeah.
𝗖cie and 𝗃𝗃. But then also when it really comes down to it, and you know you have to cover a serious story or a big story, shall we say? It almost is like a light switch for all of you. You almost just switch it all off, and you really like sort of digest the information and give brilliant feedback. And you know, I think it would be almost criminal if I didn't mention my old school PE teacher called Mr. Frankish. I love the guy. He's honestly one of my biggest sort of inspirations in life. And very, very quickly on in my career at TalkSport, you were one of the first names he mentioned. As you know, I love him essentially. You know, he's someone who just speaks a lot of sense, and he's always got almost a voice you like to listen to in them situations.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So yeah, honestly, it's I think it's across the board really, the appreciation for yourself. And to be honest, your work rate, I think that's what probably separates you from a lot of people. I remember a time in the TalkSport office, you were actually on air, and we were sat obviously in the office area with obviously all the TVs, and Sky Sports News popped up, and you were on the screen, and I was thinking, wow, this guy is relentless with it. And I think, do you agree with me in terms of, do you reckon that's really what's sort of propelled you so quickly into where you are now? Because as you say, you know, it was pretty much no media coverage, and now all of a sudden, you know, you're everywhere. So would you say it's that work rate that obviously you probably learned from your footballing days as well, that you obviously took into your new career?
I think so, yeah. I think I've always if I'm going into something, I want to be the best that I can possibly be. You know, in my career, I wanted to be the best I could be, and I felt potentially I didn't do that. So I wanted to go into this second career once I knew this was going to happen, and think, right, I need to make this work. How do I make it work? I've got to be willing. I've got to have a work ethic. I've got to show I want to be there. I've seen people come and go already in the short tenure I've been here, 2 years, I think I've started. And I've seen people turn up 10, 15 minutes before the show, no real prep, and then they just fall by the wayside. So again, Bentley will get mentioned quite a lot in the pod because we get on really well. And he helped me a lot because he said, you need to say yes to basically everything. You need to be available. You need to work hard. And so I'd always say, like, how long before the show do you get in? And he said, I try to aim hour and a half, 2 hours. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. Get in, get the prep done. And initially you have to do that. I used to come in A4 pad, 5, 6, 7 pages full of stuff. Now a little bit, I can do a little bit less because you kind of keep track of everything. But I think that other shows I've worked on as well, that it's kind of a versatility towards me. And look, I had that as a player as well. I could play in all different positions. So although some shows are probably not my character don't come out fully on some shows, I learn and I evolve and develop. And I always wanted to do that. And I used to tell Sarah, Dave, Lee Clayton, Giant, I used to tell them that I just want to learn and evolve. And if this is my second career, try and be the best I can be at that. I may not go to the very top. I may not be the very best and win awards left, right, and centre. But if I can make a second career at that, then I'll be more proud of this career than I would actually in my football career, to be honest.
Wow, I think it's brilliant to hear, to be honest. It's just so fascinating because obviously for me, obviously I don't play football. I think if you ever saw me, you'd know why I don't play football. But you know, to put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and as you alluded to, it's not just yourself. Even if players go on to play to their 40s, retiring at 40 is still a very young age. So it's a very short lifespan in terms of a career. And it always fascinates me, especially with ex-footballers when they get into a new career, especially like the media, because they've got to go again, essentially, haven't they? They've got to start from the bottom and work their way up. And I think you've done that brilliantly. So I think we'll turn our attention to the football side of things, and we have to talk about it, unfortunately, and I've got to get it out the way. I think you may have a feeling by the big Man United signed shirt behind me. It was I think it was around late November 2011, sort of around that time. It was an absolute worldie of a goal. I remember it honestly, clear as day, watching it at home. You picked up the ball pretty much from the halfway line at Old Trafford, the theatre of dreams, and your dream came true, didn't it? You've absolutely rifled one, top bins, and I think it got goal of the season for Crystal Palace. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure someone will pull me up at one stage, but it was the first time Sir Alex Ferguson lost a domestic cup game in extra time. So I think you've had your part to play for that. So thank you for that. Thanks for giving me Bit of heartbreak early on in watching football, but you know, take me through that goal in specific. I mean, what a moment, what a venue, and as I say, you know, what an achievement that is.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic for myself. And you know what? You play against some teams, and Manchester United seemed to be a team that I turn it on a little bit, and I always enjoyed playing. I scored, I think it was made 3 goals, I think, in my career against Manchester United. 2 of them won the club's goal of the seasons. One at Charlton, one at Crystal Palace, and one was at the Valley, left foot past I think it was Van der Sar in the goal, and it was brilliant. And Cristiano Ronaldo was playing. I've told this story many times, and he seemed to love the goal. The next time I played, I had the similar shot. It just missed the top corner, and he come running up. It's like, that was like the one at the Valley. It was like the one at the Valley. So it was brilliant moments. Scored one for Newcastle at Old Trafford, but this one obviously topped it off. And I think what it was, I didn't even start that match. You know, we was playing, and I'll go through the story. 𝗖cie𝗱𝗰𝘀𝗁 manager. He picked the team. It was quarterfinals, obviously, of the League Cup, and I weren't in it. And I always felt that I always felt, and throughout my career, especially at Palace, I was the best player. I need to be playing. I can produce some moments. You know, I can have some poor games. Everyone can, but I always felt if you're playing against a big side like Manchester United, who I think were currently champions of the Premier League at the time, that I need to be playing. I can produce something. So I went to see him and said, like, what's going on? And he explained. He said, look, we're going to soak up the pressure because that's what's going to happen, and we'll hit them on the counter attack with Wilf Zaha, Sean Scannell, Jermaine Easter played up front, pace up top, hit him on the counter. So I couldn't complain. Although I was angry. So I took a bag of balls out onto the training pitch at Palace, and I was zinging the balls left, right and centre from everywhere, all over. Jermaine Easter stayed out there with me, and halfway line, smack them, they were going everywhere. I ended up having a massage on my quad because I thought I'm going to struggle tomorrow, because out of anger, really. So then we get to the game. Obviously, he brings me on at half time. We picked up an injury. I think it was Dean Moxey maybe got injured, brings me on. And it was kind of like second nature. I got the ball about 5 minutes prior to my goal, and it was Ben Amos in goal. I always like to claim it was David De Gea, but it wasn't. It was Ben Amos. He was in goal. Nothing against Ben, but of course, I looked up. I was a little bit further out, and I looked up, and he was standing about six yards off his line, but I didn't hit it. And I thought, you know what? Next time I get the ball, no matter where I am, I'm going to strike it, and hopefully I can get that dip on it. And you know, I did. I got the ball, and if you watch the replays of that, like I have, I didn't even look up. So I've got the ball. Yeah. I think I've held off Park, I think it was, and struck it without even looking up. As I struck it, looked up, he was about 5 yards off his goal line, backpedaling, and I just knew immediately that I've hit it perfectly. It's going to get that dip. And it was only when I looked back at it, I thought, flipping out, I was far out. I definitely shouldn't have been shooting there. And it kind of went over Amos, but went up in the air again and kind of sped up. And I didn't realise at the time that what an impact that goal would have had on my career, to be honest, and kind of my life, because I never won any domestic trophies. I'm devastated over that. I got to UEFA Cup, FA Cup, League Cup semi-finals, England under-21 Euro Championship semi-final. Never got to a final, never won it. But I'm remembered for that goal. Wherever I go, even now, people will stop me and say, I remember that goal at Old Trafford for Palace. And that's a proud moment for me. At the time, I didn't think nothing of it. And I got off the pitch, was not on Twitter. I never used to have social media. And now I've got social media. I've realised why I never had it. I was trending worldwide, #1. And I was thinking, freaking hell, was it decent? Gary Neville saying it was the best goal ever scored at Old Trafford. And it's a proud moment for me, my family. And it was one of those, it weren't even the winning goal. That's the thing. We got into extra time because I think 𝗍𝘂𝘀𝘁 ended up scoring a penalty and got a free kick. I whipped it in. Glenn Murray scored, and Glenn Murray's devastated because no one remembers he scored in that game. Everyone says it was me that scored the winner, and he's devastated. He's like, no, I actually scored in that game. But it was a special moment. We ended a poor run of form at Palace, 11, 12, 13 games that we didn't win, and we ended up beating a strong Manchester United side. It was surprising how strong it was. So, yeah, it was one of those moments in my career that I look back on with fond memories.
Well, unfortunately, I don't actually look at it with as fond memories as you, mate. But no, jokes aside, I remember, honestly, I remember watching the game and I thought, you know, no disrespect, but I support Man United, especially back then. You're almost coasting, even if you do go a goal down and stuff like that. there was something off about that game. I was very young, but I remember it very clearly. It was, especially after you scored that goal, I just thought to myself, these things don't happen at Old Trafford very often. It's very rare that these goals occur. And it was just, and I think the moment that ball went in, even after the 𝗍𝗀𝘀 penalty, I just almost had a feeling that this probably won't go Man United's way. And probably, I reckon we could almost say that you were the one who started the downfall of Man United. I reckon.
Honestly, people have said that to me before. Since that moment, it's never been the same. And you know, Alex Ferguson come up to me, so Alex Ferguson come up to me at the end, and obviously, because I'd scored a few against Manchester United in his tenure, he was like, "It's always you, it's always you." But he was great about it, and you know, in fact, the supporters were brilliant. Like you watch the goal, behind the goal, the supporters were standing up clapping, and you don't often get that with an opposition goal. And then, like you said, once that goal gone in, Wilf Zaha, that was the game that he really come to forefront and made a name for himself. Got the move to Manchester United off the back of that. It was just written in the stars that we would win that game, and then we ended up losing to Cardiff in the semi-final, which was ridiculous. It was one of those games that we should have made the final, and we didn't. So that was poor, but it was a great game to be involved in.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, you probably had loads of games in terms of that similar feeling. I just want to quickly turn your attention to obviously your days at Newcastle. I mean, you know, I think we're all agreeing as football fans that it's only a matter of time when Newcastle really get there. I think obviously they've probably surprised us a little bit this season with how well they're actually doing. But, you know, as I say, it's only going to be a matter of time before the big six turn into the big seven. And I think it's inevitable. But obviously, when you were there, the big money wasn't there. But they always had this special feeling about it. I remember last season I went to go cover Newcastle-Liverpool for TalkSport. And the atmosphere was just, especially it was a 12:30 kickoff, but you could feel something growing. You could feel if they can get a proper team playing on this pitch with that support, it's going to be quite hard to stop for any team. So even when you were there and you spent obviously your days playing for Newcastle, did you always have that feeling in terms of the atmosphere, the support, the loyalty? Was that always there with Newcastle, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. People talk about Newcastle supporters now, and I agree with every word, really, that it's like a religion up there, and it's not a sport, it's a life for them. You know, they spend their weeks just earning money just so they can go to a game. And, you know, if you lose a game, you're not vilified as such, but you'd struggle to go around in the streets, you'd struggle to go to the supermarkets, restaurants, because everyone wants to stop you. Why did we lose? What was this? Why didn't you do this, that? Never aggression, never aggressive, but always wanting to know more. You need to make this right. But then if you win, you're like a god. Like you go into a restaurant, you wouldn't have to pay. Like it's just ridiculous. Same people as well. Like, and they're absolutely loving you. And it was a moment for me to play up there under 𝗖𝗵𝘀𝘀 was fantastic. And I only have one regret, really, that I didn't. I mean, you know me from The Office, and I'm not a shy character. I'm not a character that is inward, but I was, when I signed for Newcastle, I was, and I didn't know that. I didn't know, I wasn't mentally ready for a club like Newcastle. You know, 6 years or 7 years prior to me signing, I'm watching Alan Shearer, Euro 96, and I'm 12. And then 6 years later, 5 years later, I'm playing in the same team as him. And I wasn't ready, and I didn't know that until I arrived. And I always say to people whenever I talk about it, I wish I was the character that, not that I am now, that I was when I signed for Crystal Palace than I was when I signed for Newcastle, because I'd have made it work. I'd have been a massive success up there. I know that. I was good enough to play up there. I just let myself down in, you know, I didn't show my full potential, didn't show my full ability. Like, I remember playing with Gary Speed, fantastic player, great guy. I picked the ball up, was playing against Birmingham, and I love to shoot from distance. I have done my whole career. And I was 20 yards out. I passed the ball like 2 yards to Gary Speed because I didn't have the bottle to shoot for some unknown reason. I think back now, what was I doing? And he picked it up, shot and scored. And he got all the plaudits and rightly so, because it was a fantastic goal. But I think I could have done that. I don't know why I'm passing the buck, basically. So I regret in terms of that I'm not seen as more of a success at Newcastle, because I know I should have. I was always touted as a youngster to be the next big thing in inverted commas, but it never quite materialized. And I think it was a mentality, it was a mental side of things that made that happen, really. And like I said, I grew out of that stage, but it was a bit too late. I went out the Premier League, went back to the Championship, and became a championship player to the back end of my career. So that was a frustration, but absolutely, I wouldn't change anything in terms of going up there. The age I was so young, 𝗲𝗵𝘀𝘀𝘁, we was in the Champions League at the time, ended up losing a qualifier to Partizan Belgrade, which was so disappointing because I'd have played in the Champions League and it would have been magnificent. 𝗖𝗄𝗏 Cup semi-final. I wouldn't change anything apart from my mentality when I went up there, to be honest.
So obviously, you know, you say that you have regrets in terms of the mentality back then, but would you say that that's probably helped you in your career now? Because obviously, you know, you're old enough and you're wise enough now to sort of reflect on your career, where things have obviously gone right and where you probably could have improved from your perspective in terms of mentality. Would you say because of them things, they've actually in the end sort of turned into a positive a little bit in terms of the way you're applying yourself now with your new career?
Absolutely. And I always use that towards the back end of my career, probably end of Charlton, Crystal Palace days. I wanted to take it upon myself. I mentioned at the start of the pod to make a real feel-good atmosphere wherever I went, because I'm not saying it wasn't there, because there was a lot of groups at Newcastle, a lot of cliques, but they were superstars up there, even back then. And you had people that wouldn't make the place nice place to come and work. And it was only banter, and I know that, but you understand, young players going into that environment, it was tough to take. And I always felt I didn't want to be that when I was a senior professional, and now into this career. I always want people to feel comfortable coming to work, especially when I'm there. If I'm there and everyone's happy, then I'm happy. And you know, if I can continue to do that, the nice guy always wins. And I always see that there's people that come that are complete arseholes, to be honest, and they don't go far. Some people do, but talent can only take you so far. You have to be a nice person. And I've always had that with Benty. When we was younger, we always had that environment. And I try and take that towards my career now, because I learned that if you're unhappy, you don't know what people are going through. You know, a little compliment here and there to people goes a long way. And you don't realize that when you're saying it. And, you know, I always felt that I'm going to continue this throughout my life.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's funny that, you know, throughout all of this, the podcast so far, and you know, even being around you and Benty in the office, you know, the relationship and the friendship that you've had, it's almost sort of not jealousy, but you look at it and you think, if you could just have one friend in your life like that, you know, you've done very well for yourself. And you know, it's brilliant to watch. And unfortunately, we are going to have to spend a little bit of time speaking about Darren Bent, because he's probably, I think he's the same for you. He's unbearable this season, isn't he? His Arsenal lot are absolutely flying, and you can see it every time you see his face. He's loving it. But I actually dropped Darren Bent a little message this morning, actually, and I said to him, I'm going to have your good friend Daz on, and if you could just send me a little video in terms of what you think of Darren Ambrose. Take a look at this.
How you doing, guys? So what does Darren Ambrose mean to me? Basically talk about a guy I met in, I think it was 97 or 98, my very first game for Ipswich. Forgot my shin pads. He was the one who gave me the shin pads in my very first game. Someone who we obviously lived together in digs, did everything together, was inseparable when we spent time at Ipswich before he got the big move to Newcastle. We were reunited again at Charlton. Loved playing with him. I probably wouldn't have got to the level that I got to football-wise if it weren't for him pushing me in the youth team, and he'd probably say the same about me pushing him and vice versa. But what a guy. One of the absolute best. I'm glad that obviously he's now doing the media side that I brought him into, because I know that he's more than good enough. Someone who's kind of selfless, that will do anything for anyone, has got an opinion, will stand by his opinions, and I've watched him grow. He's not been in the media side too long, but every single season I feel like he's getting better and better, and he's getting more and more confident. But I guess the biggest compliment I can pay to him is just he's a great guy, absolute great guy. I know I could pick up the phone to him anytime, phone him if I've got anything going on, and he will most definitely try and help me in whatever way he can, whatever capacity he can. And I'd like to think he knows that's obviously both ways, that if he ever needed it, I'd help him out as well. But all-round great guy. Glad that he's doing well in the media. He'll only go from strength to strength. And hopefully one day we'll get to work again together on a proper show, and we'll call it the Bent and Ambrose show. So fingers crossed. But listen, great guy, Daz. Be proud of what you've been doing, and I'll see you soon, mate. Nice one.
So from one Darren to the other, And you know, it goes without saying, you both know how much you mean to one another. But when you hear it like that, what does it mean for you, and how does that feel?
It's fantastic, to be honest. You know what it's like growing up. I mean, growing up in the age we were, you never express your feelings like that. You never express a friendship like that. You don't. But we always knew, and you always know. And he said it there. I mean, inseparable, insufferable to some people, I tell you that. But growing up, like you said, he forgot his shin pads first game, and I always bought 2 pairs. So that's the first time I met him. This young kid, full of speed, full of energy. You know, it's like he's exactly the same back then. Forgot his shin pads. Has anyone got any? Yeah, I was the captain at the time in the under-13s, I think it was. Here's some, and kind of, I think at that day he went out, actually scored 3 or 4 goals, most of them off his shin. So they were my shin pads. So I'm claiming that as an assist for his whole career. But no, and he's right. You can pick up the phone, and I know that. You know, my dad died last October, just over a year ago now. And Rach, my wife, obviously I was devastated, but I had the boot room about 3 days after, and I said, look, I'm going to go. But she messaged Daz and was like, can you can I speak to you? And he rung her straight away, and then spoke to Rach for ages, rung her straight away. And it's little things that you don't realise. You go into the office, no one knows apart from Benty. And I hadn't been eating or nothing because obviously I was gutted. And straight away, he don't even ask. He just orders food and like puts it in front of me. And, you know, it's those little things that you don't, he didn't realise how much that helped me on that situation, because I was starving, to be honest. And I didn't realise how hungry and I was. And just to have a person like that, and like he said, I'd be exactly the same to him. And, you know, whenever we have issues, we'll always talk to each other. And people don't realise that. It just looks like around the office that it's banter. We all have a good laugh together. But there's a serious side to me and Daz. Known each other 25, 26 years now. And, you know, that's longer than I've known my wife. That's longer than I've known nearly everyone, you know. So it's great to have a guy like that. And to hear him say things like that is brilliant, because like I said, you don't really talk to each other face to face like that. And, you know, it's great. He's such a good guy, and he helped me out. And it's right. I wouldn't have got to the level I did. And he said the same about him. If it wasn't for each other in the youth team, pushing each other, trying to go one beyond each other. And, you know, he had a magnificent career, and he was always going to. I always knew he was going to. Out and out goal scorer. And I was the first one every time. My debut for Charlton, I got sent off, and it was his debut, and he scored 2 goals, ended up getting England call-up. And I was the happiest person for him. You know, I was gutted that I got sent off, and I potentially could have gone the way England call-up for me. But I was so delighted for him, and just to see what he's doing now, he's an inspiration to me. And getting into this industry was because of him. And he is. I look up to him, the work ethic. He's the main guy for me. So I look up to him, and I try and emulate what he does. And we've spoken about this recently, actually, about maybe one day, he said it at the end, one day we may have a show together on TalkSport, on wherever, the Bent and Ambrose show. I mean, that would complete my career, I think, if we had a major show together. Darren Bent Boot Room was brilliant, but if we had a major show together, it would complete my career 100%. Great guy.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear, really. And there was just this one post that I think both of you put up eventually in the last couple of weeks. It was a picture of both of you when you were kids with some questionable outfit choices back in the day. We won't go too much into that one, mate. But it was just both of you playing I think it might have been a PlayStation or whatever, and then now just recently you both playing again. And I think just literally the swipe of an Instagram post, you could just see so much. And it was, as I say, it was an inspiration from an outside point of view. You know, like I said, if you can just make sure you have one friend like that throughout life with you, no matter what, it's a bonus, to be honest, the fact that you're both under the same building, working together, you've played together. And something certainly tells me that that double Darren show will definitely happen one day.
I hope so. I hope we live a long life, and we'll be with each other for a long time. And, you know, hopefully one day we are the Alan Brazil, 𝗖cie𝗿𝗄𝘁 combo at TalkSport. It'll be absolutely fantastic. And we will continue to be friends for as long as possible. You know, like I said, he helped me massively with the troubles I had last season. And he won't know this. He won't know. He'll watch this back and he'll think, yeah, I remember doing that. And he won't know how much that meant to me. You know, I love him. I love him as a friend, and he does with me. And like you said, if you can have one friend, like, I'm delighted that we ended up meeting and like still working together now is just incredible.
Definitely. And one of the teams that Bentley obviously played for still is a massive team in your life is obviously Tottenham Hotspur. You've got you've got to help me out here. What was it? 4th in the Premier League, knockout stage of the Champions League. What's the problem, mate?
You know what? You know what the issue, I think, and I've spoken about this before, how well Arsenal are doing is creating this atmosphere that Spurs aren't doing well this season. Spurs are flying. Like, if you look at the squad, and I don't disrespect to any players, but it's an average squad. The defense is an average defense, and probably not a top 4 defense. But Antonio Conte is working miracles with that football team. But because Arsenal are flying, it's making even Spurs supporters thinking, we're not doing well. To be 4th in the Premier League, as it is now, above Liverpool, above Manchester United, above teams like that, above Chelsea, I think we lost 3 or 4 games, which probably deserved, against the teams that are flying, Arsenal, Newcastle. I'm delighted with the way it's going, to be honest. Top the group in the Champions League. I think Conte needs to be given 2-3 more transfer windows. And I've said this many times on TalkSport when I've been on. If he ends up walking away, so be it. Pick up the phone, the supporters, and slate him as much as you want, because I'll be slating him as well. But I think he deserves a lot of plaudits, Antonio Conte, with what he's done with the football club. And it's only going to improve. The guy's a born winner. I understand, don't really turn up to the second half. I understand that style of play that people talk about. It's not great. Recently, 4-3 against Leeds. Coming back 2-0 down against Bournemouth, winning 3-2. These are exciting games. Okay, teams are kicking off at 3, Spurs are kicking off at 4. I get that. I get the little bit of banter people are saying. But if you can keep the attacking players together and add some defenders, some world-class defenders, which Antonio Conte is a world-class defensive coach, he's going to earmark a few players in the windows. If you can do that, going to go from strength to strength. And in the near future, I'm not saying this season, in the near future, there's going to be silverware if we can keep the manager and some of these players together.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just really crazy to see. But you know, we're running out of time. But I did want to get your thoughts. Obviously, you know, the World Cup is upon us. Very simply, what are our hopes as English fans?
Well, our hopes is to go all the way and win it. That's our hopes. But if we're looking at realistic expectations, I'd like to see at least a quarter-final. I think if you look at the group, people saying it's an easy group. Groups like that are not easy. They are groups of death, by the way, because you're expected to go through with 3 wins, 3-4-0 each game. Doesn't work like that. But if you can go out, start against Iran, 3-4, get a great start, the confidence will be flying high. You can afford to rest a few if you're through against Wales and see what they can bring against a second-string England team, to be honest. And believe if you win the group, you potentially got Senegal in the round of 16. So there's a potential quarterfinal there. After that, anything can happen. If you can perform on the day, you get through. Maybe France, I think, in the quarters. You get through that. You're in the semi-final, and there's a real feel-good factor. There's a real element of "I told you so" culture in amongst football supporters, and you'll know that as well. So people don't want to put too much expectation, because if they do and you don't do that, people are going to, I told you that wouldn't happen. So there's a lot of negativity going into tournaments. There always has been. But you know, if you can start well, I expect a quarter-final, and after that it's a knockout round. You can go anywhere, and we've got the players good enough to win this tournament. Whether that happens, it remains to be seen. You can't look beyond Brazil, Germany, Spain, Portugal, teams like that. They're all coming back fighting and strong. So I hope we get to at least the quarter-final. It would be great for the country to unite once again. And Gareth Southgate, maybe this might be his last tournament. Hopefully it can end on a high.
Yeah, fingers crossed anyway, for the sake of all of us. Very finally, I've only got one last question for you before we wrap things up. And it's a question that I like to ask all my guests at the end of a podcast.
Yeah.
Darren Ambrose, would you say that you're happy?
Yes, absolutely happy. I've got a great life. I've got a fantastic wife, nice family, 5 kids. You know, I can't be any happier. Sometimes it's frustrating with the 5 kids. Can't be any happier. I've got a fantastic job. Great friends that I like to see as friends. Yourself, Anil, I like to class you as a friend, and I've got great friends that I work with in the office. There's not much more I want in my life other than just to progress, just to keep progressing. keep going, keep moving forward, keep getting more shows, etc. So yeah, I can say I'm definitely happy.
I think that's the perfect way to end this podcast. Darren, I cannot thank you enough for your time. You know, I can completely understand, as I said earlier on in the podcast, how busy you are, whether it's Sky or BT or Talk Sport. You're literally everywhere, mate. So thanks for taking the time out. Thanks for obviously sharing your journey so far. Best of luck. And believe me, I'll be the first one to subscribe to the Darren and Darren show, wherever it may be. But thanks a lot for your time. Good luck for the rest of your career. And I'm sure the sky's the limit for you, my friend.
Neil, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Anytime. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to it. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. Massive thanks again to Darren and everyone else who's obviously watched today. And of course, Darren Bent for sending me the video of Ambrose. Please be sure to like and subscribe on all the social media. Please hit the follow on all the social media as well for more content by the content.